I will call this organizational meeting on January 11th, 2022 to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we do anything else, it's time to deliver some oath of offices to the re-elected board members and our one new board member. Welcome, Dr. Ruffert. So
if our Dr. Ruffert, Larimer, and Mr. Bennington would stand, please. You've got in front of you. You can repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I, Eric Bennington, do solemnly affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
And the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties.
And that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties
as Board of Education member.
As Board of Education member.
In and for said Perrysburg Exempted Village School District.
In and for the said Perrysburg Exempted Village School District.
Wood County, Ohio.
Wood County, Ohio.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
In accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter.
And in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter.
To be enacted during my continuance in said office.
To be enacted during my continuance in said office.
And until my successor is chosen and qualified.
And until my successor is chosen and qualified.
All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'll need you to sign these and return these.
Very good.
I'll put them in the file. It says you guys have been sworn at.
All right, thank you, Mr. Drewer. Next then, if you would do the roll call for the meeting.
Okay. Mr. Bennington.
Here.
Mrs. Eubank.
Here.
Ms. Larimer.
Here.
Mr. Pullman.
Here.
Mrs. Ruffert.
Here.
Actually, doctor? Okay.
Preferably, please.
What?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So next we'll do a safety briefing. So Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight, be it in person or online, and supporting Perrysburg Schools. So the next order of business is we're going to open the floor for nominations for a new board president.
I'd like to nominate Eric Bennington.
Second.
Any other nominations? Hearing none, we will close the nominations.
You need a motion in a second to close.
Oh, okay. Do I have a motion to close?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Thank you. And roll call, please.
Okay. Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Abstain? Okay, thank you. Next order of business is open up the floor for nominations for a new board vice president.
Now you need to vote.
I will vote this time. Oh, I need to vote last time? Well, then yes.
You have to have a motion to close, and then you have to, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
He wants to be president now.
I know.
Oh, so now we need to vote.
Now we need to vote on him.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So roll call for the vote for the motion to appoint Eric Bennington as president of the school board.
There you go.
There you go.
You need-
Roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Abstain. Now we'll move on to opening up the floor for nominations for the vice president of the school board.
Oh, my gosh.
I'll nominate Sue Larimer.
Second.
Thank you.
Seeing any other nominations? Seeing none, I now need a motion to close the nominations.
So moved?
Second.
Dr. Reffert? And roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. And now we need a motion to vote on the vice president.
Yeah,
Or now we vote on the vice president.
now you
Okay, so
vote.
roll call for that vote, please.
Okay. Ms. Larimer,
Abstain?
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Congratulations, Sue.
Thank you. Right back at you.
Thank you. So next, can I have a motion to adopt the proposed agenda?
So moved?
Second.
Sue? And roll call, please.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Pennington.
Yes. All right, moving on to item 5 is a discussion about the calendar, our 2022 calendar year. Mr. Hasser, would you like to walk us through that?
So this is for the regular board meeting calendar, and so we have kept for our regular board meetings the 5:30 time, and also the location, the Commodore Building. And unless otherwise noted, and there are three dates that may fall into this category, but it is the first Monday, or the third Monday of each month that we have our regular meetings, with the exception of those dates that are impacted by a holiday or sometimes school breaks. The calendar here, you see 2 Tuesdays and there's a Saturday, and I'll circle back to that, and then there are the dates Monday. So those have all been presented to the board. The board retreat is scheduled for Saturday, February 5th, so we do have confirmation. We will be sharing with the board the location of where that will be, and then the hours. Typically, it's 8:30 to 3 or somewhere in that neighborhood for that retreat. We're working with the Ohio School Board Association, which will allow us to, will provide us a facilitator, and that person will kind of lead us through that day. So these are the dates and times that we're suggesting for the board's regular board meetings for 2022.
Any discussion on those dates? I mean, they tend to be, it's good for the rhythms of the school system, for the board and for the community, that kind of set the third Mondays when we can, so what we've done in the past. Move on to the board work session conversation.
Okay. Board work sessions, you see the dates, the board work sessions are set for 7:30 a.m. They will be taking place on generally the first Wednesday of the month, and they will be held in the Commodore Building. We are suggesting room 35, which is on the 3rd floor. When you get to the top of the steps, it's the first room on the left. And these are the dates that we have suggested for work sessions. Work sessions are different than regular board meetings. There's typically 1 or 2 items that are presented, talked about in greater detail. Every once in a while, we do have to add agenda items to vote on if they are emergency in nature or something that needs to get done sooner than later. So these are the dates that we are proposing for our work sessions.
So 35 isn't the big room that,
It's the first one of the classrooms.
okay. Where we
yeah.
went to eat.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Related to food, and then I know where we're going.
yeah. It's a classroom size, and there's plenty of room to spread out. There is a screen there, so it works
Okay.
well. You know, little change from holding them here where we've been on Tuesday. So there's a conflict with this space on Wednesdays, so this was suggested, so.
Okay.
Would they still be video recorded?
That's not possible there, so they would not be. So.
We'll have areas for public viewing of those work
Sure,
sessions.
sure. Like before, before the pandemic, we met, you know,
We met in a smaller
in a
conference room,
smaller
boardroom,
room,
yeah.
so there'll be more room. But you know, right now there isn't any, you know, everything that we have here is not portable for filming, so it would be in person if someone wanted to attend that, so.
Old school.
Old school. Right,
Right.
Item-
The BNI, the Business Networking Group is here every Wednesday morning, and there's about 60 members of that organization, and we would be displacing them, and that, you know, so we wrestled with that. So the recommendation came to try to accommodate their needs and also provide us with a space that, you know, is big enough for all of us to meet and so forth. So that's the reason why we're not in this room.
And so, and it's why, yeah, one of the reasons we didn't move back into the smaller boardroom too was to allow for more public viewing too.
Yeah.
Well, there's no public viewing, and, oh, well, you're saying so that people could attend if they
There is,
wanted to, because there's
there is
room.
not public participation at work sessions, but it is open for public viewing.
Was Wednesday our only choice as a day, barring that Tuesday isn't any good? Where, was Thursday an option, or?
Wasn't really in my calendar, but
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, it's not on your calendar?
in my calendar, yeah. yeah.
Okay. All right. Well then, let's not beat a dead horse and just go ahead and do it.
Moving on to board assignments for standing committees and other boards. So I take a look through there, maybe talk through some changes. Thank you to everybody for flexibility and moving some things around to give people some other experiences. I don't know if there's any other questions, or hopefully we've encapsulated all the conversations that have happened over the last couple of days there. So if there's no other discussion then, I'll take a motion to adopt items 5.1 through 5.3.
So moved?
Second.
Kelly, thank you. And roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Oh, Mrs. Eubank.
Yes.
I'm used to hearing from different directions.
I know, isn't it weird? I couldn't find the flag.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Dr. Reffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Item 6, a discussion on the district master calendar. Mr. Hausler?
Sure. So we're looking to adopt the calendar for the 2022-2023 school year. And this is a hearing, so there's no vote, but we wanted to take an opportunity to present information about the calendar. And our goal is to bring back a recommendation at the next board meeting, our regular meeting, which will be a week from this evening. So with that, I do have just a brief kind of presentation to go with it. So the school calendar, anytime that we build the school calendar, there are some considerations that really limit what we can and can't do. So I wanted to talk a little bit about those, because it's very easy to say, you know, well, why don't we do this? Or why don't we add a fall break and a midwinter break and do this and do that? So we wanted just to kind of walk folks through what goes into building a calendar. So one of the main things that we do look at is a testing window. The winter break exams, balanced semester, instructional days for first and second semester, and then you have quarters. All those things are important. We also pay attention to the first and last day of school. Professional development, teacher work days is something that we do have to bake into the calendar. And then we have to keep track of student hours at different grade levels, and then teacher contracted days. So when it comes to the testing window, we want to avoid having testing windows during spring break, for example. So we wait for ODE to share with us what that testing window may look like next year, so that we don't want spring break to be the first week of the testing window, because, you know, the window is fixed. There's a definite start date and end date, and if you throw a spring break in the middle of it, that can have an impact on how well our students perform, or, you know, if somebody gets sick and they miss, that counts as a zero. So it gives us that ample opportunity to make sure that we have the ability to test, to make up tests for students that aren't there. Also, in the fall, we have the third grade reading guarantee, the test that we administer. Starting students, when we start them, it gives us a great opportunity to identify students who are in need of remediation. So if we started after Labor Day, for example, we would lose maybe 3 weeks of contact with those students and the remediation to help support them before that first test. And again, students that don't perform have to take a test again, and ultimately can lead to a consequence of not being able to advance. So that's something we take very seriously. The winter break, because when we start, we do end the semester before break. If you recall, a number of years ago, we'd start a little bit later, but then we'd have break for 2 weeks in winter, and then we'd come back for 2 weeks and do exams. And we heard from parents and students and teachers, it's just really hard at the high school level to have a whole semester, take 2 weeks off, come back for a week or 2 weeks, and then get into finals. So like colleges, we're able to wrap up and the semester ends. Students can have break and really not have that coming back in exams hanging over their heads. So it's a true break, and we've heard a lot of positives. For elementary students, it doesn't matter when the semester ends as much, but for a lot of teachers and others, the courses at the high school change as well for those semester courses. So that's something that we pay attention to. And also the last semester in each semester is a teacher workday. So that's why we don't go right up to that Friday. Let's say if break begins on a Friday, why do we have a day? It's for the teacher workday. The balanced semesters, trying to get the right number of days for the first and second semester is important, and that's hard. There's more days in the second semester, and we don't want to start any earlier in August than we have to. We also know that historically there are more snow days in the second semester, so for over a few days, that's okay, because generally speaking, snow days occur in the second semester. And then the first and last day of school, we don't want to start too early and we don't want to go too late. So those are the bookends. Professional development for staff, and then the hours for instructional hours, and the negotiated agreement for teachers. So in the contract in Ohio, the Ohio Revised Code says that we have certain things that we have to bargain with our teachers' unions or other unions. And that's something different than what you find in private sector. The law says these are the things that you must bargain and other things that you don't have to bargain. So for us, the contract year is something that the board can set and determine the contract year. But in terms of the number of days and those factors are up for negotiation. So highlighted here is member professional development day scheduled for the day preceding a student's return for winter break, but not to be scheduled on a Friday. So I highlighted that, and I'll show you in a minute how that plays out. So what that means is if, it dictates when that teacher workday can happen. And then it talks about the number of days contractually. There's also an ad hoc committee that the PEA, the teachers union, puts together to give advice and suggestions on the calendar, so that we'll be meeting with them later this week. So we listen to their feedback. It's the feedback is important because those are our educators, and they certainly know more about what is happening in their classrooms and offer advice. So this is something that will be taking place, and there might be some changes that you'll see between now and next week based on what folks are suggesting and ideas from this conversation or certainly others. So those are some things that go into the ingredients. So this is a copy of the calendar that right now we're proposing. And so I know it's a little bit hard to see, so I apologize for that. But you can see here where it outlines the first day of school will be August 16th. And then you can see where in November, the 3 days, no instruction for students and staff on the 23rd, 24th, and 25th, which is Thanksgiving. And then we do have with December, and I want to pause here with December and January. When the holidays fall on, when Christmas falls on the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, and New Year's is Saturday and Sunday, it makes it really tough to do school schedules. It's almost better when it's on a Monday or a Friday or a Wednesday for that matter, because it gives us a little more to work with. But being on a Saturday, a Saturday, Sunday, you see here that we could go right up until the Friday, the 23rd, or, in this case, right up until Christmas if it's on the holiday, on the weekend. So we want to watch that. We don't necessarily want to do that. And then likewise, with the first being on a Sunday, coming back, how long do you go? So the questions are how much time off before and how much time after. And then is 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and that affects the total number of days for the first semester and second semester, depending on how you balance those days. With this particular suggestion, we have those, the last day for students would be the 20th of December, teacher workday on the 21st, and then we'd begin the break. And then teachers would return on Thursday the 5th, and then students would be set to return on January 6th. If the question is, well, why can't we just have teachers return on the 6th and students return on the 9th, that contract language that I shared with you says that we can't do that. So those are the rules that we agreed to. So this is one of the challenges that we have. So if we were to back up and say, okay, now we'd like to maybe have students come back on the 3rd, or teachers on the 3rd and students on Wednesday, we could do that. It just shortens that. It would impact the length of break, which families appreciate that time off. And it would also adjust the end of the year going down to May, where if you add more instructional days in January, then we have to back up when school is out, which we can do. So the conversation with the teachers perhaps could lead to them agreeing to having a work day on the 6th, but there's no guarantee because, again, they don't have to do that. In terms of the spring, this is actually the week that is leading up to Easter, which is that Sunday, that first Sunday in April. And traditionally, we've taken that last week in March off, but again, if we take the last week in March off like we have, we've usually given that Good Friday, and if you add an additional student day off, which Good Friday typically has been a student day off, then now we're the last day for students would shift in May. So it's something that, if you give a day here, then you need to take a day away, or if you take a day away, then everything gets longer. So how that plays out for us is the first semester is 84 days, the second semester is 91. There's never really an exact balance between those 2 days. We try to get them as close as we can. But as I indicated, there's usually a snow day or two that happen in the second semester. So at the end, it does kind of balance. So you can begin to see how the quarters break down. So all those things have to be factored. So suggesting to move this or switch that or add a midwinter break, it really begins to change a lot of the things that we shared. So anyway, I wanted to give a little bit to that. I know Mrs. Price is here. I don't know if there's anything that I missed, if you wanted to add anything or.
I think also just most state testing occurs during that fourth quarter, so there are a few more days in that fourth quarter, but a lot of those days, there is significant instructional time taken up with state testing.
And I didn't mention, it was highlighted in the print earlier, but OD has not released the dates for testing. So we're waiting on that. So there could be a possibility, depending on when they schedule that, we might have to come back and make an adjustment because, we just learned. So the next board meeting, it will be an agenda item. I'll do another presentation if that's okay with the board president, and we will review, what we're presenting, but this is a good starting point. This is option B, and it's actually probably option B of variation 4. So there's a lot of incarnations because as more information comes and balance and, so we try to do some different things and there's no, everyone has a personal preference. Some people are saying, boy, I like the time off before Christmas because that's when we do cookies and shopping and wrapping, and other people are like, that's such a busy time. I like afterwards where our family can relax and to enjoy each other and the hustle and bustle. So there's just no right or wrong answer. It's just what works and, how we can fit it here, so.
Well, I was wondering on the January, I would expect like a high absenteeism for the students on the 6th.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you just bump it back a day instead of going all the way back to the 3rd? Have the teacher day on the 4th and the students come on the 5th and 6th?
That's a good suggestion.
Is that version 5 or is that option C?
Yeah, and we'll get feedback, and I'm sure people that will be looking at this will offer suggestions. Please pass those along, and again, we can take a look at that. One of the things that we've heard through other conversations in past years is people really like to have like a 2-week window as much as possible over break, and when you have that Saturday, Sunday holiday, you could really do a week and a day and a day. So we wanted to avoid that, so as much as we can. So, but that's a good suggestion. So we'll look at that and look at some other feedback. So.
The other thing that was brought to my attention this past fall, and it could be COVID for the last 2 years too, but how fall seems so long, and that word fall break you used already today. But again, PEA has a say on this next, and they can go from there and figure that out. Because I know there's only so many days, scheduling is difficult, but that's the only thing I heard was, wow, if we could just had a day or so here, but I understand the scheduling, how it is.
And so what that would do, switching back to the number of days, so we'd go from 84 days differential in 91, by adding a day off, that would be reduced to 30, it would reduce to 83, and then the second semester that day would be picked up, so that would move it to 91, unless we shorten the Christmas break.
Right.
And then we have a shorter break to give up. So,
Right.
so we can do that. It just begins to, where do you pull, and,
Exactly, like you say, so many parameters to make a calendar.
yeah.
Question, on the agenda, you had 2 documents, so I had printed them. So there was an option A, and then the B is what you.
Yeah, that inadvertently got uploaded, and
Oh.
that would be not possible based on the contract language. So there was no
So
reason.
option A is not,
No reason to present that because it's not an option based on the contract language that we have, yeah. So
okay.
that
Because
got-
I couldn't notice the difference at first, but then I did. So it's sort of, to piggyback off what Sue said, on option A, that Friday was off.
Right,
That was an in-service day, so that's not an option?
right.
to have that
Unless-
Friday-
Unless there's conversation in the union were to say, okay, we'll make an exception, and they have a process that they have to do. So for the union to change, they have to go back to their members, they have to vote on it. So I don't want to put them in that position to say, boy, we could have this day off if they agree. That's not the rules of the contract, so whether they choose to do that or not, it's up to them. So,
Okay,
yeah.
okay, so that's not okay.
Yeah.
Well, I sent you an email today without
Yeah.
looking at and then I went in and I looked at it, I thought, oh, there is the calendar.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off what Ray said, I was visiting family in Indiana, and they had a fall break, and it was the week before Christmas, and he said, oh, I got to go do something. I said, you have school next week? And he's, yeah, we go till Wednesday. And that's what made me look at a calendar and look, and like you just mentioned, when holidays fall, and it will be coming up in like 2024, 25, on a Wednesday, you have to not have that full week off, and then, New Year's. So this is just, what we're going to have to see the next couple of years, where you don't have that full week. But I like that. When I saw that, I was happy to see that.
Good.
It could be my daughter's age, but boy, they just twiddle their thumbs before Christmas, and that week is sort of, rough if there's not yet Christmas and the anticipation, so.
Yeah.
Well, any other, so next step, the PEA, the ad hoc committee will weigh in. We
Yep.
need some testing dates. Any other comments? Forward them over to Mr. Hostler, and we will talk about it again a week from tonight.
Yeah, and please feel free to email me. Appreciate the email, and we can make adjustments, and then have a further discussion before the vote next, the next week.
Next week.
So, yeah.
We'll move on to item 7, a tax budget hearing. Mr. Drewer, if you want to make a couple comments on what we're looking at here.
While Mr. Hosser pulls this up. So It is a requirement of Ohio Revised Code that prior to January 15th, each Board of Education has to pass a tax budget. The purpose of the tax budget is to show the county auditor and the Tax Budget Commission that they need to collect the taxes because we have justification for those expenses. And it's an antiquated process because the 5-year forecast really is the most important management tool. But this has to be done every year. Now, in Wood County, it's a little bit different. In most counties, you submit your tax budget, and then the county auditor sends you what your tax rates are. Wood County has already sent us our tax rates. Here's what they're going to collect. So this is kind of, it's pro forma, but it's required by law. So, and when Wood County's format's a little bit different. So let me just, I just want to walk through this really briefly to show you what's here. So the first page is the general fund. So this is obviously where our, the bulk of our local tax collection as well as state funding shows in. So what I have to show is what last year fiscal year, what I expect this fiscal year, and then what's important are the next 18 months, because that shows the county auditor, please collect the taxes, right? So so the first page is general fund, and frankly, it just matches my 5-year forecast. I mean, that's, it's a little more paperwork. Now, when you get to page 2, this is the most important page, really, because this does impact the tax collection. And this is where you have debt. In our case, we have a couple of bond issues that the taxpayers were collecting on. Well, one is coming towards maturity, and typically as a bond comes with maturity, if you already have cash on hand, the auditor makes sure you have more than you need to pay your principal and interest every year, which means toward the end, they can stop collecting and you just pay it from what you've already collected. So they look at it very closely to make sure that they don't collect too much. Because so when that bond matures, we have just enough money to pay the bond off, refund, our investors, and we move on. So that page 2 is probably the most important part of that. And for example, both of our bonds, the effective millage on them dropped by 1/10 of a mil. We don't need to collect as much. Page 3 are 003 are capital projects where we have 2 permanent improvement, one for technology and one general, and these are all, again, tax collections, and again, it shows the collections in those areas. It's just like the general fund. Now, just as a point, the bond retirement and the capital projects are not part of the general fund, right? So we are not generally talking about these in here. The next, and there's 2 PI, 2 permanent improvements. So you see the general one first, and the page 4 is the technology one. And the technology one reminder is a what's the term I'm looking for? It's not temporary. It's
Inside notes?
What's that?
Inside?
No, there's a renewable on that, right? We got some PI monies we're gonna have to be renewed. Yeah, there is inside millage in there also, but that's, and then the last page is page 5 and page 6 are all of our funds that are non-tax. So all of our grants and student activities and those kinds of things, we just have to show the revenue from them. Again, there's no taxpayer money involved in any of these funds. Well, not directly. Obviously, state and federal grants, our taxes are indirectly, but we're not. But that's, so the tax budget then just shows, in this case, it's a statement of revenues, say, hey, Mr. County Auditor, please continue to collect.
And again, driven from the 5-year forecast information that we see on a monthly basis.
Yeah, ideally, our budgets, the 5-year forecast, and the tax budget all match. Now, they don't always match exactly, but they're very, very close.
So you need a motion and a second and an approval of the estimated.
Later on in the agenda.
Later, it's in the agenda later.
It'll be in section 8 as part of the consent, I believe.
Okay, thank you. which then that does take us into the consent agenda. We're looking at items 8.1 through 8.8. Items that are typically, for the most part, routine in nature for an organizational meeting. Mr. Hostler, is there anything you want to draw out or draw attention to?
I'll just go very quickly. So the first is asking the board it's being recommended that the board join the Ohio School Board Association, which it's done in the past. That is just for the Ohio School Board Association and not the National School Board Association. So we get a question every once in a while on that. It is required that school districts designate newspapers to be the place where they put different notices. Public notices are required by law. So we're asking that the Perrysburg Messenger Journal, the Sentinel Tribune, and the Blade are the papers for the district. Standing authorizations. This is something that the board is giving the treasurer and the superintendent certain authorities for the upcoming year to do certain things on behalf of the board. And so there are different kinds of things that happen that we can operate in between board meetings so that we're not having to call a board meeting every single day to keep the district running. So those are some of the things that we do. Mr. Chair, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add to that, because I know it hits both of us.
Now, again, these allow us to just do our day-to-day business for the most part. I want to point out, just as an aside, item 10, as newly elected board members, you will do that, and that item 10 designates me to do that on your behalf. That doesn't mean you can't do it if you don't want to, but you certainly you're allowing me to do it in your stead. And that is, the auditor asks for that certificate every time they audit, so.
Employment of temporary personnel, authorization for the superintendent to employ personnel and accept resignations determines necessary to cover emergency situations. So we have a board meeting, let's say a regular board meeting on Monday, Tuesday morning. We have a resignation of a bus driver or a secretary, head cook. It allows us to basically get somebody to work in that position at the next board meeting. That person will be asked for your approval. So if the board says no, then that next day that person's done. But that allows us to operate and keep things going. If that wasn't possible, then we would be having a special board meeting so that we could hire that driver to start that route that afternoon. So, and then finally, legal counsel. Bricker Eckler, which handles a lot of the school finance, they're out of Columbus. Sumter and Associates, which is another finance firm. Spangler Nathanson is our general practitioner and also works with some local taxing issues. Smith Peters Khalil and then Scott Scriven also work with us with HR and some of those other components, special education. So those are the law firms that we're asking for your approval, and I don't think there's any change from this year to last year with those. So those are standing authorizations. This is the federal, state, privately funded projects to act as its agent, to sign forms. And again, you see all those forms. It's just an opportunity for us to keep the ball rolling in between board meetings. LPDC is required by law for us to review licensure for staff. So this sets up the calendar. And then the School Board Association accepts a certain dollar amount from every school district to contribute to a legal assistance fund, so that if our district had an issue, the School Board Association says, yeah, this is an important issue for all of Ohio, they might kick in some funds to help us with that. So you may recall Plain Local, there was a lawsuit, there was legislation that was passed where property transfer that could have affected us, and there was litigation, and so that would be an example that affects a whole bunch of districts. Records Commission is the Board of Education treasurer, superintendent, and that's meeting the Ohio Revised Code. So pretty standard types of things, and that wraps up.
I know somehow we left off the tax budget off. That if we could add another item for that, or you want to do it separately, it's up to.
I think I'd like to include it in just this consent vote if we can, if there's no objection to that.
No, go ahead.
So I think it suggests that whoever makes the motion that you add that at an 8 point, like at 8.8 and then consent vote 8.9 then. So just make the motion and add the tax budget
As a separate vote or within this consent?
within this.
Okay, okay.
So an 8.9, a tax budget? Oh, what we just were talking about.
I would insert tax budget as 8.8 and do the consent vote as 8.9.
Oh, gotcha, that's right.
I'm sorry we didn't catch that earlier.
That's okay. I have a question, though, going back to 8.1. Why are the numbers different? It says that the membership to OSBA is $77.98, but it says dollar amount $81.04.
It's a typo. The right number, I believe, is the 79 number. Is that right, or is 81 number?
Not the 81 number?
Let me look. One of those numbers is last year's. I can't remember which one.
Hopefully that's the cheaper chicken for this year.
Well, it's based on enrollment.
Oh, we're screwed.
the higher number?
It's the higher
Well,
number.
but remember, our enrollment was down a little bit because of COVID last year.
true.
So I
Oh, okay.
from their standpoint, so I don't know. I thought I had that invoice here. I got everything else in this folder.
Except for what you need. And just to be clear, we are not joining the National School Board Association. Good.
No, and that might be maybe the
The
reason why this
8104
year's
was
lower
last year.
than last year, because it was a dual kind of thing. So where you joined one and it automatically rolled over in the other. So without that, because I think the Ohio School Board Association withdrew their membership. So that number, might actually be the lower number because of that, but.
It is the lower number.
Okay, all right.
So we're looking for a motion on the consent agenda with item 8.1 revised to be the $7,798, as well as adding the tax hearing onto item 8.8, making this consent agenda vote 8.9. So looking for a motion along those lines.
So moved?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Eubanks. And roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Dr. Rufford,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. So before I move into the adjournment, just a couple other thoughts real quick. One, Mr. Pullman, thank you for your leadership on this board as president the past 2 years.
Oh, my pleasure.
During what has certainly been a difficult time. It's very much appreciated. And I look forward to working with every one of these board members, your unique perspectives and skills to do what's best for this community. So we got a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we're going to be up for it. We're going to have a busy year. So with that, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Rufford. Ms. Larimer? And roll call, please.
Dr. Rufford,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Okay. We're adjourned. What did you?